Welcome into the Locked On Knicks podcast. I'm Gavin Schall. The New York Knicks survived the Atlanta Hawks 116-114, down one RJ Barrett. It took Julius Randle's best game of the season and some clutch shooting from Jalen Brunson down the stretch. We get into it all right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASC medical.com. And I wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day. If you want to participate in that trend, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, hit that notifications bell, and then on your favorite audio podcast platform of choice, be sure to follow along. But if you want to take our relationship a step deeper, if you want to be a little bit of a Knicks creep, hit the subscription button to our Subtext that is linked in the episode below, and you will get thoughts from Alex and I before and after every single game, whenever a rumor comes out, and you can ask us any question about the New York Knicks or about our personal lives. But who would you be finding out about? I'm Gavin Schall. I've been covering the NBA as a credentialed reporter on and off for the last 8 years. And I'm also a play-by-play broadcaster covering college basketball, high school sports, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But today I'm here to talk Knicks Hawks, a 116-114 victory. The Knicks had a lot going against them in this game. I thought for most of the night, Julius Randle was kind of the only guy on the team, like having an above average performance. Maybe Dante DiVincenzo as well. But he was the only one really cooking throughout this game. Meanwhile, the Hawks, it was kind of reminiscent of that Bucks loss earlier in the year where they were just shooting lights out. Like Jalen Johnson was 4 for 4 from 3. And it was just one of those things where it's like, all right, no RJ Barrett. Maybe this just isn't the Knicks night. And it kind of felt almost like last year where they had all these painful early season losses that just kind of left you walking away with the feeling of, man, we're better than that team, but we couldn't quite pull it out. Fortunately for the New York Knicks, the trio of Jalen, you know what, I'm not even going to call it a trio. I'm just going to say the fivesome of Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Immanuel Quickley, Mitchell Robinson, and Julius Randle simply would not let that happen down the stretch of this game. And Julius, I mean, it has to be the place that you start. Like if you didn't know about his early season performance, like there wouldn't have been any indicator that this guy was any different than the dude we got last year. And that's been true for a couple of games now, except that honestly, this would have been probably one of his 5 to 10 best games last season. Finished with 29 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 12 for 24 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, 2 for 2 from the line. He was exceptional. I have very few complaints about his performance. Started off the night really strong, 14 points in the first quarter. And I think it was the early recognition that the Hawks, post-trading John Collins, simply didn't really have a matchup for him. Like there wasn't an obvious person to throw his way. And he just bulldozed through the likes of Jalen Johnson, or like the few times DeAndre Hunter got chances on him. It didn't really matter. Like his first bucket, and the Knicks' first bucket of the game was like a deep catch post fadeaway. And really, what was Atlanta going to do about that? Then he hits a tough step back 3, then a lefty spinning shot in the post. He was repeatedly trying to thread the needle to Mitchell Robinson. The first time it didn't work out, but I was kind of stunned by the attempt. And it's so obvious that after years of ignoring Mitch as an option, Julius is making a real concerted effort to reward him. And we talk and highlight all the times that Julius is a bad teammate. This is a great example of Julius being a good teammate. He's gone out of his way with RJ Barrett missing these last 2 games to try to get Josh Hart going. He's seeked out Quentin Grimes at times, and Jalen Brunson will get to it, but he's done a really good job of trying to keep Quentin Grimes in rhythm, trying to make sure that he gets his shot. But anyways, to return to the point at hand, Julius missed once, but then in the third quarter, he threw a lob to Mitch from a couple feet behind the 3-point line with a Hawks help defender skying in, and he, like, it was a dot. He put it like a frozen rope on Mitch's hands. Mitch caught it, flushed it. It was one of the better passes I've ever seen Julius Randle throw. Heck, he was even running the floor in this game. Maybe not defensively, but offensively. He got ahead of everyone in Atlanta, and Dante DiVincenzo was able to set him up for an easy bucket. And then just down the stretch of the second half, like a driving kick to set up Jalen Brunson for three, and then had another one like late on a post up where Brunson had this brilliant back cut with his defender just kind of like stopping, paying attention. And Julius, like, it felt like one of those possessions that in the past you would have probably wanted to just like drive a knife through your head. That was a little graphic. Sorry for anyone listening with kids. You want to bang your head against the wall because it was a post up and it was just going. You're like, all right, this is going to end with him taking some crummy fadeaway and that'll be it. And it'll be a bad possession for the Knicks. And instead, just last second, swings it to Brunson in the corner. Does the same thing, shot clock expiring, catches on an inbound, immediately double teamed because the Hawks just assumed that he was going to shoot. And he zips a pass inside to Isaiah Hartenstein for a buzzer-beating finish. Has a very late back cut in this game to bail out Jalen Brunson when Jalen Brunson got into the lane and two defenders came there. We've seen that synergy between the two of them, like ever since Julius turned it around about 4 or 5 games ago. Like he is cutting relentlessly off the ball. I could go on and on, but all that is to say, like, he played with effort. He played with focus. He made shots. He was by and large really unselfish. This checked every single box that I could want from a Julius Randle game. And I thought it was fascinating that Atlanta, obviously their coach removed from that 2021 series, but the defense they were playing was very similar. Like they tried to shade him with two guys. They tried to challenge him to they were betting on him being a ball hog, and he wasn't that tonight. And that ultimately is what won the game for the Knicks, in addition to some brilliantly scalding shooting from Jalen Brunson, which we can get into in just a sec. But before we do that, I want to tell you about our buddies over at FanDuel Sportsbook, because they are just the best in the business. And I was a fan long before they became a sponsor. So score early this NFL season and early this NBA season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. It's $150 if your team wins. $150. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Where I've been focused recently are those NBA championship lines. The Knicks minus 4,600 or plus 4,600, to win an NBA championship this year. Do I think it's particularly likely? Not really. But maybe this is something we'll talk about over the coming weeks. I do think this Knicks team could potentially be really special. So if you want to get in early, now would be a good time to lay some money down on that. And you can do so by visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon, kicking off both the NBA and the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, so we talked Julius. Let's move on to some Jalen Brunson conversation. He's had a weird start to his season, right? I haven't really panicked in any real way, and I think that was initially because Julius was just so bad. It kind of took up all the panic that I think I and anyone who follows this team had within them, and it was all sort of pointed in that general direction. But he continues sort of to have a weird season. He's finishing like significantly worse at the rim this season. He was we can go through those Mavs numbers, right? He was 64%, 59%, 72%, 68% at the rim as a Mav. His last 2 seasons there, that was 92nd and 93rd percentile for a combo guard in the NBA. Last season for the Knicks, he was at 60% at the rim, which was about average, but given the fact that he got to the rim at a pretty decent rate, like just slightly below average, and he was elite at generating, I think this is the more important thing here, short mid-range shots, right? Where they were 41% of his shot diet, and that was one of the better marks for any guard in the entire league. And his finishing on them was really, really good, despite that high volume. Now we fast forward to this year. His rim frequency is down. His rim accuracy is way down. So I mentioned those numbers on the map, 72, 68. Last year, 60% at the rim. This year, just 52% at the rim so far. His short mid-range, last year, 49% in short mid-range. This year, just 34% on short mid-range. He's shooting exceptionally well from 3, 43%, and he's taking more of them. So that's covering things up a little bit. But the shooting around the rim continues to elude him a little bit. In fact, he made just 2 shots this entire game from 2-point range. He shot 2 for 9 from 2-point range, and one of them was the game winner to make it 116-114 with about 10 seconds left in this one. And that was a beautiful move on DeAndre Hunter. And look, despite the cold night inside the arc, give JB like all the credit in the world for still being willing to shoot that. Excuse me, with 19 seconds left in the game. But it's a little bit worrying. The one bit of good news is that I also thought his playmaking, which I wasn't overly pleased with last year, was the same, or if anything, maybe a little bit worse than last year. Tonight, he was really good in that capacity. Like, there were 3 different assists in the first half that really caught my eye. There's one where he ran a pick and roll with Mitch. A Hawks defender came down to just kind of bump Mitchell Robinson, tag him, and throw him off his path to the rim. And then Brunson just whipped an offhand pass to the opposite corner to Quinn Grimes for a 3. Then he hit Isaiah Hartenstein on a roll over a double team. That was a pass that he hasn't really been making yet this season. And then he had this beautiful hit ahead to Quinn Grimes for a 3. That's just, again, another one of the few good things he's doing this year offensively is consistently pushing the pace. And that was a great example of it. Just in general, this was something Benji pointed out on Twitter that I really appreciated. The Knicks were just not going after Trae Young or putting Trae Young in the action as much. And on a night where they didn't have RJ Barrett, who's now a 50% three-point shooter to space the floor, like, you just see things get very, very cramped with Josh Hart out there. And I think teams playing off of what the Cavs did in the postseason and playing off what the Heat did in the postseason are just throwing more and more bodies in Brunson's way. And if you want to look for a reason that at the rim frequency and accuracy and the short mid-range frequency and accuracy are both going down, that's it. And it's also part of the reason why RJ Barrett's shooting 50% from 3, because those shots are about as open as they've ever been. And I think when RJ's out there, teams are going to start to adjust to that. And maybe RJ falls off a little bit in terms of his 3-point shooting, but it will help JB around the basket and in that short mid-range, and it will allow him to be even more of a creator once the floor is a bit more spread. With Josh Hart in there, that totally goes away. Alex mentioned this the other night, but teams are just not guarding him. They treat him as a total non-shooter, and they basically say, you know what, we will live with you going 3 for 5 if you want to go 3 for 5 on wide open threes for us to be able to clog the paint each and every night. They're not going to treat Julius like much of a shooter. Obviously, Mitch is always at the rim, and Quinn Grimes is the one guy out there who gets respected outside of Jalen Brunson. And look, we saw in the Heat series, like, Jalen can still execute, even given those circumstances. And maybe what he did against the Heat shouldn't be the expectation, but it should be better than what we're seeing now. That being said, the degree of difficulty on him has absolutely gone up this year. On a good note, he's definitely playing better defensively. Took 2 more charges in this one, which have to be taken into account when you talk about him as a defender. And he's generally been pretty solid on that end. So that's good. Immanuel Quickley, another guy who despite like him throughout basically having a fine statistical night, I really didn't love his first 3 quarters in this game. He didn't create a ton of offense for others, ultimately finished with 4 assists. A game after he's pretty active on the glass against the Celtics, didn't have any rebounds. And the biggest thing was just that he passed up on a bunch of open threes. And it was reminiscent of last year where that was for the first 15 or so games, just a major, major problem for him. And he didn't really look that aggressive seeking out his own shot and getting to the rim. And it was something I talked about against the Celtics. But when RJ's out, like, he has to be more of a scorer, and he has to be hyper aggressive, and he has to, again, like, play like a dude who wants 25 to 30 million this year. And down the stretch, he did that. Like, the Knicks were down. I guess I haven't really generally recapped this game yet. The Knicks played a brilliant, specifically end of the first quarter. They had a 17-6 run after it was 7-7 early in the game. The Hawks came back and tied it, and the Knicks had another run to really separate. It ended up being up by as many as 13 in that first quarter, or in the second quarter. And then let the Hawks come all the way back because the Hawks just started shooting the lights out. Bogdan Bogdanovic in particular was just cooking whoever was on him. The Knicks did a really poor job tracking him. They had major issues with turnovers. Anyways, it's all added up to Atlanta leading 101-94 about halfway through the fourth. And it just, I mean, to me, it just sort of felt like the night was over. It was like, all right, this is this is going to be a bad deal. The Knicks are not going to finish this one off. They're going to run out of steam. And I was ready to come on this pod and be like, wow, like I knew they were going to miss RJ Barrett. I did not realize just how significantly they were going to miss RJ Barrett. And instead, they come out of that timeout down by 7, and Tom Thibodeau, to his credit, kind of reverses course and immediately tries to get Trae Young involved in the action. Lo and behold, that gets Immanuel Quickley going. He hits a 3. He makes a nice runner, and then the Knicks are within 5. And then the Knicks would ultimately take the lead on this pretty incredible Mitchell Robinson sequence where him and Brunson are defending the pick and roll, and it's DeJounte Murray getting a step on Brunson, and Mitch just hangs out long enough to dissuade DeJounte Murray from going all the way to the rim. So Murray tries to whip a pass to, I can't remember, it was either Okongwu or Capella, dive into the basket. Mitch just anticipates it perfectly, drops back, picks off the pass right on time. The Knicks go up the court, nice sequence, but they ultimately miss the shot. Mitchell Robinson just dives on the floor and fights off about two or three different Hawks on the floor. As he's falling out of bounds, like flips it, eventually ends up in the hands of Jalen Brunson. He hits a 3 for the Knicks to take the 102-101 lead. They would ultimately hold on from there. But I say that to say just clutch play across the board from Brunson, from Quickley, from Mitch. And we'll get into more about what Mitch did in just a little bit. But they figured out a way to pull this out in a game that, again, they tried to give away a couple of times. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about an underrated night for Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart filling in all the gaps. But before we do, I have to tell you guys about our friends over at Jase Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for the connection we have. And today, I want our chat to be a little bit more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply on ED medication. So that means no matter what's happening in the world, whatever's going on, you don't have to be concerned about that potentially being an issue. You can bring on extended travel. You can bring on any situation that doesn't allow you to have constant access. So you are covered. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, or Rivado prescription. And this is possible because of our friends at Jase Medical. Go online now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jase. I am thankful for this service. Supply chain issue has caused me to cut the pills in half just to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit, and now I feel secure. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love want to get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Alrighty, let's wrap up on Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, and how the Knicks almost gave this game away. So there was a ton of sloppiness in this one. Quentin Grimes, in like a 6.5-minute stretch in the third quarter, had 3 different turnovers, and he just had, even going against Trae Young, like give Trae Young credit. He got a number of pokeaways, just a myriad of issues holding on to the ball. That was kind of a team-wide theme. DiVincenzo had a really bad turnover when he came in the fourth quarter, and even in the first half, Jalen Brunson had a play where he committed. I think maybe just because it was Clyde wasn't on the call, so he wasn't there to scold him. He committed the cardinal sin of passing where he got up in the air and just sort of threw it away to no one. And it was a real theme on the night for the Knicks that they were just not careful with the basketball. And then some bad fouls. I mean, Quickley fouled Bogdanovich for 3, like right when the Knicks were going on a big run at one point. And that, or excuse me, right after the Knicks went on a 9-0 run, and that stalled things out quite a bit. And then on the like a little later in the game, you saw him foul Trae Young, and that could have doomed the Knicks. That made it 113-113. Though, to be fair, the Knicks challenged it, and they probably should have gotten that call reversed because it was very obviously rip through, which as of about a decade ago is no longer supposed to be a foul in the NBA. And down the stretch of this game, after that Jalen Brunson shot, it felt like things were sealed up. And then the Knicks failed to get the ball in, which, if you remember, was an issue going back to last year. I saw Benji mention Isaiah Hartenstein would be a great option to get it in because of his height. To me, it's just about having multiple athletes, not athletes. Well, you want to have multiple athletes out there, but having multiple outlets. And I wouldn't mind having a bigger guy in Isaiah Hartenstein who could pick them out. But that play was just so clearly designed to go to Brunson and only Brunson. And when he was smothered, and it was just quickly setting a pick on him. And the Hawks did a really smart thing, which was to have the guy guarding the inbounder, pivot at the last second, and cover up whoever was coming close to the ball. You got to have like 3-4 guys who can get the basketball. And even if that means just throwing it as high as you can to Mitchell Robinson, the dude is currently the best rebounder on earth, so he can catch. And obviously, you don't want him getting fouled, but you get my point. In an emergency, you should have options. If you're the Knicks, you should have options on those plays if you're Tom Thibodeau, and it could have cost New York. And then they nearly turned it over even after getting it back when DeJounte Murray committed a lane violation, but ultimately made their free throws down the stretch. Bogdanovich missed a desperation 3, and the Knicks were able to hold on. But Mitchell Robinson, his impact in this one was really impressive from a box score perspective on a night where we mentioned the Knicks. Because, look, this is a team, right, that typically does not shoot the ball very well, and they have a great offense because they're low turnover. They get to the line, and they get a bunch of offensive rebounds. They were high turnover tonight. They had 16 of them. They did not get to the line. They shot 11 free throws compared to 26 for the Hawks. They made half as many free throws as the Hawks. Where they made up for that is they shot really, really well. They shot 48%. They shot absurdly well for 3. They shot 47% on distance from distance for this game. And then Mitchell Robinson did what he always does: 6 offensive rebounds, 9 defensive rebounds, 15 of them total. And on top of that, he had 2 different plays that I remembered, may have even been a third in there, where he was fouled going for offensive rebounds. And teams at this point just have no idea what to do with the guy, have zero clue how to contain the guy, and he simply has his way. He made Clint Capella, who is like the guy, I don't know, this is a deep cut. This is for people who've been listening to us for the last 5 years. But when Mitch was a rookie, Alex and I would always reference Clint Capella and say, if he could just become Clint Capella, man, oh man, what a steal that would be for the New York Knicks with the 35th pick in the draft, taking a guy who was a total project. And now he is babying Clint Capella. Clint Capella has to put Mitchell Robinson on his birth certificate. He had like Clint tried to post him up at one point, and Mitch just so casually boxed him out and then swatted it. And the fact that the Hawks over and over again just had to repeatedly foul him to have any chance of the basketball. And it's not even him just winning in the air with his athleticism. It's his strength. It's his tenacity. The guy just, even on the ground, that play I referenced, absolutely has a nose for the ball. And it's a joy to watch every single night. Another guy who that's perpetually true for is Josh Hart, who had another one of the biggest shots in this game. When it's 107-108, the Knicks were running out of time on a possession and just had this great cut to the basket. Jalen Brunson, looking for an outlet, hit him on his way there, and he hit a runner to make it 110-107. It really reminded me, it wasn't as crazy, but that people remember the shot he hit against the Cavs, that fadeaway jumper, shot clock buzzer beater with a 127 left. It was just about the same time in the game, and it felt like it had the same importance in that if he had missed it, I just don't think the Knicks would have ultimately won this one. And then defensively had this incredible late rotation when the Hawks would have gotten a layup, and it was him helping the helper, got over. I think it was Jalen Johnson. Maybe it might have been, it was probably Okongwu. Tied him up and helped the Knicks eventually get the ball back. And then hit, that shot clock buzzer beater. He was just really clutch, really solid throughout. Quentin Grimes, I already said the negative for him. He left early in the fourth with a left hand injury after he got tied up trying to block Bogdanovich. So you hope he's okay. Tom Thibodeau post game just called it a bruised left hand. So hopefully that's nothing significant because he shot really well this game. A guy who's coming in 40% from 3 did nothing to lower that average. 3 for 8 from distance. Again, Jalen Brunson really, really proactive, searching him out. I really love that he at one point attacked the closeout and went for a lefty dunk. He got swatted on it, but we've just seen him so rarely even look to get to the rim. And in this game, he had Trae Young on him, and he's still part of it was, again, the lack of touches, and a lot of those touches just meant a quick three-point shot, which I never mind with him, but I want him to be at the point of his career where he's confident in attacking a Trae Young, confident in attacking a Duncan Robinson, and whether that's the fault of where he feels he is on the Knicks pecking order and whether or not he has the right to do that on any given possession, or whether that's just not within his skill set at this point. I think it is within his skill set because we always see flashes from him in terms of his handle, and he's great at the rim, great at finishing at the rim anyway. So hopefully more and more of Quentin Grimes' attack at the rim, but some good shooting from him, and that is the sight for sore eyes. Dante DiVincenzo, I thought, had an awesome game outside of his 4 turnovers in 22 minutes, which is an ugly, ugly number, needs to be cleaned up. But 6 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, just did a little bit of everything. He is just another guy, and this is something we noted when he was coming in, who can be a connector for the Knicks in the same way that Josh Hart was, and I thought made a big difference last year because he had that. And before that, it was really only Immanuel Quickley and Quentin Grimes as guys on the roster who would just consistently make the extra pass and make the simple pass that leads to great offenses over and over and over again. And he just does that, and it really helps when he comes in, especially I think it's compounded like when you have a Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle out there, because those guys can crash a defense. But in times in the past, I don't want to call this guy out because he's gotten so much better at it, but in the past, you'd have Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle crash a defense, and it would kick out to RJ Barrett, and things would just slow down sometimes. And instead, it's DiVincenzo, and he's quickly, like he knows exactly where the basketball is supposed to go next. He is a defensive playmaker. He had a absolutely sick finish over Okongwu, and those are just the type of shots that he's been trying and missing basically this entire year. Also pushing the pace really well. I mentioned about 20 minutes ago that assist he had to Randle. He had another play where he got a steal, pushed the pace, and got Immanuel Quickley a 3, and it was right when the Hawks were cutting into the Knicks lead, and just felt like a very big play. He just had good moments this one. Isaiah Hartenstein, final point, he was really, really solid. Had a couple nice tip-ins. There's some short jump hooks that you'd like to see go in for him, but he's just a good player. The Knicks get 48 minutes of good center play every night, and it really helps them. I don't really know what's going on with RJ Barrett. That's a somber note to end things on. Again, he was apparently missed tonight's game with a migraine. I know people perpetually have migraines in some cases, so it's totally plausible that is actually what's going on. But it does strike me as weird that he missed a game 2 days apart because of similar migraine issues. But maybe someone who's more informed on how migraines work can let me know that I'm dead wrong about that. The Knicks really, really need him. I don't think this would have been a close game if RJ Barrett played. I think this is great news. I think we are clearly better than the Hawks, especially because Trae Young is shooting like 36% from the field this year and did not torture the Knicks in the way that he has in the past in this game. So that was really good to see. But I think the Knicks are going to be awesome when RJ is fully healthy. So that's it for this one. We'll be back tomorrow with a mailbag episode. Might try to get a guest for that one. But until then, we will talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks.